Where's our hair and makeup people?
Yeah, okay.
I did mine before I came.
Okay, I'd like to call the Planning Commission meeting for Thursday, July 22nd, 2021 to order, and the pledge to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call, please.
Clark,
Here.
Fredericks,
Here.
Height,
Here.
Lindman,
Here.
Moretto,
Here.
Nedrow, Schneider,
Here.
Thorne.
Here.
Now, Brian did let us know by email he's traveling back from a job site in Indiana, so I would move that we excuse him.
Okay, motion by Lindman, second by Moretto. Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Well, those are easier.
Yeah, golly. Okay, I would like to hear a motion to approve the agenda unless somebody else can see anything that we need to add.
I move to approve the agenda.
Okay.
Support.
Motion by Moretto, second by Snyder. Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Would love to hear a motion to approve the minutes from March 25th, 2021.
You know, I saw one very minor correction. There was a typo. I don't know if you want to add a letter. On page 6.
Did I? It was quite a few minutes in this.
Oh, yes. Where it says, Nedrow mentioned that not on, it should say not one person. You just need to add an E right there.
Okay, so page 6, first paragraph, 3/4 of the way down, Nedrow mentioned not on person from the public wrote, should be not one person from the public wrote. So, here a motion to amend the minutes as stated.
I move to approve or to amend the minutes as stated.
Okay,
Second.
motion by Lemon, second by Moretto. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay.
Wow, I really like that.
We have no public hearing.
Do we have to move to approve those? Or is that part
Or
of
that
that?
approved it as amended?
Yes.
In that motion?
Yeah.
Approve as amended, yeah.
And we do have the Michigan Planner Magazine here, which looks like everybody got a copy of.
Yeah.
And that we don't really have any
How
correspondence
did we
or
live without
public,
this?
so we don't have to call to the public.
Didn't know where to go.
That brings us to new business item A, ordinance amendment to accessory structures in rear non-lakefront yards. And double check that. There's a packet here from Carlisle Wortman. And Sally, would you like to comment and discuss that?
Certainly. You may recall that you all approved this ordinance amendment a couple years ago. And when the building official was out looking at a property on a lakefront or non-lakefront yard where somebody wanted to put in an accessory structure, the ordinance actually was limiting the location of that accessory structure to 20 feet from the rear property line. And on a non-lakefront yard, that really wasn't our intent. Our intent was to allow accessory structures 5 feet from both the rear and the side property line for non-lakefront yards. So we needed to fix it. So this language essentially does that. Now for non-lakefront yards, a side or an accessory structure can be 5 feet from a side or rear lot line. On a lakefront yard, the accessory structure, if it's less than 18 inches in height, can be 5 feet from the rear lakefront or, right along the lake, or 20 feet if it's more than 18 inches. So that was the change that we had made, but we applied it to both lakefront and non-lakefront rear yards, and that caused a problem. So this is fixing that.
We actually call them lakefront yard and
You do.
and rear yards.
Yes.
But we made the mistake of
Yes,
including rear yards
Yeah, I remember
without
that.
saying that they're 5 feet,
Yeah.
not
20 feet. Right,
Exactly.
Right.
Yep. So I included all the language that we had in the previous amendment, just so you could see what we had talked about, what we had approved. And the most recent changes are now in red, and they're just a couple. There's not much at all.
Well, it looks great. It does.
Yep.
So I have a few things I need to add. We had our zoning board meeting on Tuesday night, and there was an applicant for zoning abatement that actually had already installed a pergola down by the water. And there was a lot of discussion across the board about whether the ordinance and the intent of the ordinance is still current with the homeowner's desire to utilize their property fully. And they actually had a lot of neighborhood support for keeping the pergola in place. And so they have asked me to come back to the board here and request to have a special meeting with the zoning board and us combined to discuss the ability to allow accessory structures on lakefront property yards, because a lot of the concern was there's many homes on the lake that already have an accessory structure, and there has not been a motion by the village to go and enforce that those people remove theirs. So there's a disproportionate enjoyment by the property owners that
I'm one of them.
didn't get to have their accessory structure approved without going through the permit. So I don't know if we can wait to vote on this until after that meeting and discussion is, because that may change what we decide to put into the ordinance at this point regarding the accessory structures and
Just
lakefront
remove the
yards.
non-lakefront part, so it's for all yards, is what you're saying, right?
Well, they
Or the-
are requesting to have the people to have the ability to have the pergolas
I think it's-
to have the ordinance changed to allow it.
Personally, I think it's a god-awful idea. If everybody puts a pergola down by the lake, no one is gonna be able to see the lake from their house. I already have people that have broken, it's not a law or an ordinance, but just the thing that says in the plat. And I can't see the lake anymore because of all the lifts and those are temporary structures, so there's nothing I can do about that. But people start putting pergolas all along there,
I don't know,
it's just,
I feel it should
it's
be case
too
by
much.
case. I
You
mean,
don't build down by the lake. The whole point of enjoying the lake is being able to see it. I don't want to see your pergola. I don't want to see your kitchen. That's why it's 20 feet from the lake, or 25, or whatever. I know, yes, there's some people that got away with it, but that doesn't mean we let everybody get away with it. And like I said, this is just my opinion.
Well,
I
and it-
was told my garage that was just built has to be even with my house, which is 60, 70 feet away from the water.
Who
I
told
wanted
you
to
that?
set it- Wolverine Lake.
yeah,
Yeah, he just did the same thing.
believe me, it does.
It has to be 20, it has to be a certain number of feet from the water.
True,
Even
but
with
if
my
his
house.
house
Or-
is a lakefront house,
Or
It couldn't be
what's
set
that
back.
thing about you have to be in line with all your neighbors?
Has to be in
That's
line
what it
with
was,
that.
yeah.
has
Is
to be
that-
in line
Well,
with
how
the
far
front of
back
his
are we
house.
talking about?
As long as
I
you're
just wanted a
obstructing the-
garage that would have been about
Are you-
10 feet,
From the water?
no, 10 feet closer to the water, which still leaves 50 feet.
Yeah, that's,
Well,
And they wouldn't let that
I think
happen.
that's,
well within the requirement.
They told me it could not be either
That's
in front
actually-
of or past the side view of my house. It had to be equal with it.
Well, that's fine, but as far as this lakefront setback is concerned, your garage is not non-conforming. It meets the standard. As far as from the lake.
did you just build it?
Yeah, year and a half ago.
Okay, well, the issue that's on, that
Did
we're
they-
talking about right now is not to adopt the new language until their possible change is gonna need to be made. Do you think that what we've got here is covering her issue, Sally, or not really?
No, it isn't. It's a different philosophy. The point of this ordinance is so, just what Scott said, so people's view of the lake is not obstructed. There are
And I agree
several
with that,
other
too.
ordinances that also do the same thing with fences. So you can't install a fence to obstruct someone else's view of the lake. So, and when we were doing this, we did it primarily for outdoor kitchens and, you know, some of these new outdoor fireplaces, not fire pits, but, you know,
Yeah.
fireplaces with a chimney.
Right.
And the intent of that was to not obstruct views. So I would say this language is much more consistent with other sections of the ordinance than what you're talking about. If the village does want to go in a different direction and permit it, we're going to have to look at a number of other areas, not just this.
Okay, so I guess what we want to do is probably hear a motion to table.
Can I ask a question
yeah.
first? Did we have a public hearing on this?
Oh, yeah, and it went to village council.
So we
and village
we
council.
can't do that much to this without having another public hearing.
Right.
But
Right.
the only thing we're talking about is that we did something we didn't intend to, which was to take a setback that existed, not on a lake, but just in somebody's backyard, and moved it 20 feet for these things, and we didn't really mean to.
So actually, I see your point, Scott, and it's a good one. This language doesn't address what you're talking about. So we could go ahead and schedule a public hearing for this language because it fixes the problem for non-lakefront yards.
Do we have to have a public hearing just to fix that? Because
You
I
have
think
to
it was
have a public hearing.
unintended, and I don't think anybody realized that we were changing the setback in a non-lakefront yard.
Well, that's correct, but we do have to have a public hearing.
Okay.
But it's not addressing, I guess what I'm saying is, this situation Kathy brought up, we would have to go back and totally change this ordinance. What all the black language on these sheets is currently in place. We're not changing any of that. We're just fixing the problem with this. So if you wanted to change the black language, then we're going to have to, that's like another topic.
Okay. Well, and I think it would be worthwhile to have that discussion with the zoning board, because we are seeing more cases with people coming in. And, you know, unless the village decides that they're going to go and enforce the ordinance by making the people that currently have one remove
Well,
it.
let's talk
then-
about that, because it's very possible those people put those structures up when it was permissible, and then the ordinance changed, and those are existing nonconformities.
But it was, back then, did the ordinance say it was allowed, or just didn't speak to it?
I think it didn't prohibit it.
So it didn't allow it either?
No, I think
Didn't specify.
well, no, I think it did allow it. I'd have to go and look.
Okay.
But, I mean, if a structure is put up illegally, and the structure is, you know, it's deemed to be, it's found to be, like, they put it up illegally, and then a year later, somebody complains about it, and the building official goes over and says, well, you didn't get a permit for this, and it's not permitted, it wasn't permitted then, it's illegal, you gotta take it down. So, but that can get very tricky, because you've gotta essentially know when they built it, and know that it was illegal at the time.
Mhm.
And prove it in court sometimes.
It can get very, I mean, you know, it can get very sticky. So people have to, essentially, zoning code enforcement happens when someone complains. Nobody complains. A lot of times, things slip through the cracks.
Mhm. And I think that's where they're saying that's kind of been disproportionate value for different homeowners based on their ability to slide and not have neighbors complain.
Well, you know, I guess there's another way of looking at that too, and it's, should the village not enforce the ordinance? So if this has come up and, you know, we get a whole group of people in here and we hear, oh, so-and-so put theirs up a year and a half ago or 3 years ago, and it wasn't allowed then, and, you know, I mean, then we start hearing all this stuff, and the village may feel like they have to do something about it. So, it's,
Well, I can tell you that it was very,
you don't want to encourage.
But they didn't leave the meeting
You don't want to
feeling
encourage
really
non-compliance,
good.
is all I'm saying.
Right.
You know, we really don't, we want to encourage people to follow the ordinance, to know what the ordinance is, to get the building permits so that the structures are safe,
Mhm.
and to be fair to their neighbors.
So there was something that you had said in the past, and I'm trying to remember which way it is. Is the default that if it's not in the ordinance, it's not allowed, or is the default if it's not in the ordinance, it is allowed?
The default is if it's not expressly permitted in the ordinance, it's not permitted.
Okay, right, that's why, I knew it was one or the other.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So that would be good to find out if it was expressly permitted 20,
And you know,
back to
I
20
was gonna
years
bring my
ago.
ordinance tonight, and I didn't.
Okay. But they were asking, like, when would be a good date for us to get together to discuss it,
With the zoning board?
the zoning board.
Yeah. Well, is it up to us and the zoning board to make that kind, isn't the council have to kind of push us in that direction? I mean, we don't just meet,
What do you suggest would be the best way to proceed on this?
right,
This
I
is what
don't,
I would suggest. I would suggest, Kathy, since you're the liaison with the zoning board,
Mhm.
you have a discussion with the zoning board, and then the planning commission can review those minutes at their regular meeting,
Mm.
see what the zoning board's opinions are, and then the planning commission can start to talk about it. Now, it really is up to the planning commission to make a determination as to whether or not this would be a good thing for the village. A lot of times, if you do get a lot of variance requests for an item, it's a good idea to look at the ordinance,
Mhm.
but that doesn't necessarily mean the planning commission has to change it the way those local neighbors want. Because you may not be hearing from everybody. You may be hearing from people who don't care, or you may not be hearing from people who don't care, or you may not be hearing from people who don't know about the situation, and who don't know that the planning commission is considering this. I mean, we feel like we publicize what we do here pretty well, but not everybody's really keyed in. So, you know, it's really up to the planning commission to make the determination. They would draft ordinance language based on what they know, what they think is right and the best thing for the village. Then they have a public hearing. And if they get a lot of people coming in and with a lot of comments, then they certainly can do something about it. The other thing is, if it's a really hot issue, the village may want to do some kind of survey or some kind of bigger outreach to see if there are, you know, other opinions that weren't heard at the public hearing.
Okay. So, should we table till next month's meeting?
I think you can go ahead and schedule a public hearing for this because it's fixing a
Ah,
problem.
okay.
It's not changing the situation that Kathy's talking about.
Address
Gotcha.
that one later.
Right, that's step two.
Okay.
And I would hate for folks who, you know, want to put up a shed in a non-lakefront yard to have to wait for this fix.
Yes, I think there's more than one case that has an issue with the non-lakefront yard.
Okay.
That's what Tim was saying.
Okay.
All right, well, I guess then we would like to hear a motion to schedule a public hearing on the ordinance amendment to accessory structures in rear non-lakefront yard.
well, can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
The red stuff is the stuff you're saying to fix it.
Correct.
How much of this is new?
None of it. All that language, all the black language is what is currently in your ordinance.
Yeah, it's just they strike out.
It's just the red stuff is new.
Strike out the.
But we added all of this
Yes.
recently.
Up
Well,
about a year and a half ago.
because I'm looking at this other building structures and it says 50 feet, and I don't ever remember hearing that.
Well, that is for, you know,
This isn't your main residence, this is
no,
another?
no.
Okay, I get it. I was thinking your house, and I'm thinking, man.
No.
So would that be a shed, or what's the other building?
Like a garage.
Aha.
So 50 feet?
From the lake.
And then there's that thing about the average setback right there. Okay.
But it's still 50 feet from the rear on the non-lakefront in this term.
And that has been in your ordinance for probably 50 years.
Okay, so the motion we need is to add these items that are in red,
Yes.
and
Then have a
how
public
would
hearing.
do we need to spell that out, or can we just say these items
No.
in red?
It's just say the draft ordinance language as presented.
Okay, I move that we schedule a public hearing on the draft ordinance as changes as presented.
I'll second it.
Motion by Lindman,
I'll
second by,
Motion by Frederick.
I'm sorry, motion by Frederick, second by Clark. Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay, that brings us, we have no pending business, that brings us to old table business, master plan update, online resident survey results. I'll hear a motion to take that off the table.
I move we take that off.
All right, motion by
Thorne.
thank you, second by Snyder.
It's all right, it's been a long time.
Motion carries.
Don't have our names under our faces anymore.
Turn it around.
So, the master plan update, Sally's been working on. I have made a list of photos to take to add to the master plan. I kind of whipped through it and
Great.
found some spots that I think we could add some pictures to. We don't have any pictures of the Veterans Memorial Park in there. I thought that'd be something good to add. And I also kind of wanted the shot of the village hall here to either include like down to the boat launch or have a separate picture of the boat launch. And there's a couple other odds and ends I was going to throw in there, so I'll have that put together soon. And as you probably saw, the online resident survey results are in, and there is a copy of that here. And Sally, would you have anything you would like to say?
No, we did advertise this, the village advertised it quite extensively, but we only got 10 responses. And I did talk to the village manager and administrator and asked him if we should keep going, and he really didn't see the point in doing it. So, but, you know, we have 10 answers, so that's.
And we tried.
I think it informs you a little bit about some of these questions. For instance, those office land uses along Glengarry, where the Glengarry Inn is having problems, you know, doing their business because they're zoned office and it's a non-permitted use, and you can't expand a non-conforming use. So I think it does help us a little bit in some of the goals, and maybe the future land use map, we can modify that a little bit, particularly on those sites along Glengarry. So,
I had a question about this. I was looking at it before, and it said the subject lots, but there's no picture of what you're talking about. How
well,
did
there
they
was
know?
on the survey.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there was on the survey, there was a little illustration.
And it was which
By the-
lots?
by
You know
the
the lots,
church.
yeah, along Glengarry that are zoned office,
Right?
those were the lots we were talking about.
Okay, this didn't have anything to do with that corner of offices where we had the
No,
discussion in the last meeting.
Nope.
Not a
All right,
gas
well, at
station.
least we tried.
no, that's South Commerce, yeah.
Right, but I think resolving the zoning issue for the Glengarry Inn is something critical we get done in this
I
master
would
plan
agree.
update.
I agree. How hard is it just to change the zoning on that? I mean, is it difficult to change from office to commercial for them?
It's just as difficult as everything else we do, which is, you
Well, the
have to have a public hearing, and you have to have a recommend to council, and then the council makes the decision.
Right, but the one step is to change it on our zoning map,
Right.
which is a first step, and then they can apply to rezone to match that, and then at least they can say, well, yeah, it conforms to.
Yeah. Is that something that we're planning on doing?
Well, the people that we interviewed said that they were not, did not think it was inappropriate to rezone. Like nobody's going, no, no, don't do it.
So they're
you know,
okay with it.
So, yeah.
Right,
But there was
so-
only 10 people that responded, but
Hey,
of those
As they
10.
were coming out of the box.
Yeah,
Right.
We got
we can
7
open a
here.
public hearing, I
Yeah.
suppose, but,
right,
I mean, that's kind of what this was.
yeah, yeah.
They are gonna have the actual corn roast this year, I think, you know,
Great.
and maybe more people would, because we did some surveys for the Park and Rec, when I was on Park and Rec, at that event, and, you know, you get a lot more people, because you offer them a raffle ticket to fill it out or something, you know, I don't remember what we did at the time, it was a while back, but
Well, you
might be
certainly
worth
could do
waiting.
that if you'd like, or we can just go with this and, I mean, if there's any responses in here you think are completely off in left field or something that you were surprised on, then maybe we want to try and get some more input. But if you think it's,
I think it's prolonging the inevitable.
So is what you're saying
Yeah.
that we want to take the map and say this is what we intend,
yes,
not what we've done already?
right.
Because
So-
our intention is to make the Glengarry Inn be a commercial or some, or whatever we decided, you know.
Yeah, zoned appropriate.
That's just something that, if we put into this, that's what we're saying. It's our master plan.
The master plan, the future land use map
Zoning
is not
for what
the
it's already
zoning
being
map.
used for,
Those are
right?
two different things. The master plan is what zoning is based on. So you start with the master plan, your future land use map has to show what your desired land use designation for every parcel in the village. And then when someone comes to you with a rezoning proposal, you can look at your master plan and say, oh, look at that. The rezoning is consistent with our master plan. That's one of the criteria for a rezoning. It has to be consistent with the master
Do
plan.
they have to come and ask?
Is there zoning?
For a rezoning.
Yeah, they will.
Because we couldn't just rezone it underneath them, even though we're going to a more, or a less restrictive
That seems like half
zone.
these properties like.
You know,
zone C1.
local unit of government can
So I didn't
rezone
know if that was
property.
something that would be easier to do.
But
for
they
those
have to go through the
properties.
rezoning process, which is
Right.
the public
Do-
hearing, and then it's got to be approved by village council. But it is it's a little tricky because you are rezoning somebody's land that someone else owns. So you have the ability to do it, but most communities do not do it. They leave it up to the property owner. If the property owner wants to rezone it, that's up to them. They can come and request it. But it's the, you know.
Is there a cost for that?
Sure.
There's a cost for everything.
No, I just mean the Fort Glengarry Inn, if they
Yeah.
wanted to
Yes.
become a, they would have to put in this
Is there-
request, and there's a cost.
Yeah.
Sally, is there zoning like O1C1, like kind of combination use, or is it just strictly office
there-
commercial?
We, in the master plan, we certainly could look at a mixed-use land use designation for the master plan, and then we could say in the master plan, we think we need a new zoning category for mixed use. And then, under mixed use, you often have residential, office, and commercial. Those are generally what goes into a mixed-use district. And then that might be able to take care of a number of problems along that area.
I was looking at some of the answers, and they said, you know, if no, what do you see as a more appropriate use? And the majority of people said
Residential.
single family,
Yeah,
right? So if we could do just mixed use and then kind of leave it open to the developer or the landowner,
yeah.
and then they could propose what they want to do, and we can take it as a case by case.
And then they could also use some of those commercial properties that are already developed, those can be usable,
Right.
Right.
I mean, there's what, 2 or 3 vacant
right?
buildings right there that, it'd be great to see something there.
Right.
So if that was our intent, was to create a mixed usage thing, that's something we'd put in the master plan, or something that the council has to approve as putting in the master plan?
Well,
Both.
I can't recall here if council approves the master plan, if you approve it. But.
I say we approve it. It's just terrible.
I think we did last
It's in
time.
your ordinance, your ordinance says who approves it, but the master plan, there's state enabling legislation has a very specific process for how that happens.
Right.
So, we have to go through that process, we get the master plan updated, And then the next step is to take that document and say, okay, these are the items, the action items that we wanted to take after we update this master plan. Then you go into your zoning ordinance and say, okay, to implement the master plan and zoning, let's establish a mixed-use zoning category. And then we have to change the zoning map because we're gonna apply that to certain properties.
Right.
Well, what do we want to do? Do we want to make some suggestions for updates to the master plan, and because we're not done with it yet anyway, right?
We've got
There's-
quite a few revisions.
Well,
So,
what
I
do you
mean,
need
do
to
we want to
suggest?
talk about these zoning type changes that we're, as a plan?
Well, the next step in your master plan update is for us to go over your future land use map.
Right.
So now that we've got, whatever public input we're going to get, and we've updated the background studies, now we need to look at the goals and policies and the future land use map. And we can, review the goals and policies, make sure they're what you want, and review the future land use map, and if you want to make any changes to that, we can make changes.
Sally, I got a question. Kind of circling back to the Glengarrian. I understand what you're saying about, okay, it seems like they need to make the approach for that change to happen, but if we're looking at future land use, we know they're non-compliant. I guess I'm hard pressed to understand why it would be tricky for us just to say, okay, we're gonna create a situation where this land now complies with the business.
Well, that wouldn't be a rezoning. If you modify, it would rezone all those parcels. It wouldn't just be one parcel.
Okay.
You would be rezoning all those properties.
But if we did them as all mixed use,
Then
Then
they're
they would be
compliant.
compliant.
Right.
Yeah,
And-
and that would free the Glengarrian to create an expansion or whatever.
Right.
right, and it would open up those other vacant properties to be
Yes.
single family or.
Right.
Would it be just Glengarry stuff, not the corner lot on
Not the
Commerce
corner
and
lot. No,
Decker?
we're talking, I think
No.
we're just talking basically on
Okay.
Glengarry.
Right.
It's those
On the future
office-
land use.
The office.
The
area.
office, and I think.
But
the
if
old
you have an
church or
idea
something
for
like
that,
Yeah.
I'm sure we'd like to hear it, because
That's not a gas
nobody has
station.
come up with a good idea for that yet.
Bait
I
shop.
would just love to see a big welcome
Fishing
to
lures
Lake
and
sign
bait
in
shop.
that corner, but I know we can't.
Yeah.
But
Okay, so we do need to retable until we can gather the rest of the things. I should be able to get those pictures. Do you want me to send those
Yeah,
directly
that'd be
to you,
terrific.
Sally?
Yes, please.
What's the best email?
How about I email you?
Okay, gotcha. All right, so I'd love to hear a motion to retable the master plan update.
I move that we retable the master plan update.
second.
Okay, motion by Snyder, second by Thorne. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that brings us to liaison reports. Council, our liaison is Brian Nedrow, who is stuck down probably in Indiana at work right now, so we won't have a report for him. Parks and Recs, we will not have a report due to some other circumstances, but how about ZBA?
Yeah, so, I was instructed to get a date and schedule for when we can come and meet with you guys to talk about that. And
Well, they're
we
from the
did- we did
village, they can
have
come
quite-
here anytime they want.
No, right.
But they wanna have a
but it
joint
was too
meeting, I know what you're
It was
saying.
too soon after Tuesday
Yeah.
for a lot of people to fit it into their schedule.
Well, there's always next month.
Yeah, why don't we do it next,
Yeah, we could-
next,
Next Thursday, or
Well,
next,
next
not
Thursday.
next
a
Thursday,
month from
but
today.
Sure.
Yeah,
Good.
then we'll have something on our agenda.
Yeah. That's something to talk about.
I know.
Yeah, I mean, that
So, yeah,
sounds
we-
good.
Yeah,
Why
it
just do
does.
it then?
So we're gonna have to notify them some way of our suggestion, which I think we could probably just email the chairman of the ZBA, right?
Mhm.
Would you be happy to do that?
yeah, I can send an email to Craig and
Okay.
out to the board.
Awesome, okay. Thanks, Kath.
Sure.
Okay, how about Water Management Board?
Well, we've had an exciting time. One thing I talked about to Tabitha when we first came in is that we initiated several months ago a SAD initiative for the sewers. And we have now the required amount of signatures to be able to schedule the first public
Yay.
hearing, which is going to be
Nice.
next Wednesday, is it not? Next Wednesday. So there'll be a first public hearing on that.
It's not actually a public hearing, it's just an informational meeting.
The first of two informa,
No?
An informational meeting and 2 public hearings.
Okay.
Like 3 all
why did you let me walk in?
This guy, it just-
I'm sorry. I
Is it
feel-
your fault the water's so high?
Well,
You're on water management board.
yes, it is. But, and for anybody, I don't know how many people know, we do have a transponder in the lake now where you can get lake depth and temperature on the website.
Really?
Yep, under the water board thing. You can look at that, it's there, you can see how deep the water is.
Where does it measure from? In one location?
At the,
or-
yeah, it measures at the dam.
At the dam?
Yeah,
Okay.
and part of the hope for that is, there's like, I think it's like 2 inches either way. If there's a rapid increase or decrease, it sets off an alarm. You don't have to wait for somebody trying to shove their boat off a hoist to find out that the lake is leaking a little too much or too suddenly. So that's, the other piece, unfortunately, our chairman, Mike Hurst, resigned. There was some confusion over an appointment. The water board was set to have, we'd interviewed a couple of people for the water board, and before the water board made its recommendation, the council appointed Ed Sinkowitz to sit on the water board. So the chairman felt that was
Why does that name sound familiar?
former council member.
Yeah. He's also now alternate on the zoning board.
Yes, he
Is that the
is.
one? Was he on the news?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So, anyway, so the next water board, we will be looking to select a new chairperson. So we've got that to look forward to. The other thing is we pulled 134 geese off the lake
Thank you.
during the
Yes.
goose roundup.
Good job.
So, yeah, it was fun.
That was a lot.
Yeah, that's a neat activity. So it's the only time I like getting up at 5 in the morning. So every other day I'm set, but that's about it for now.
Okay, well, thank you
thank
very
you.
much.
So they're changing the
That
corn
brings
roast
us
to a goose
to
roast.
any announcements. Okay, I'd like to hear a motion for adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by
Third.
Lindeman, I think second by Moretto.
Everybody.
All in favor?
Aye.
Well, thank you, everybody, for your
Thank you.
time.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.